All right, everybody, welcome to this week's Corn Belt Umpires Zoom Lunch Clinic. My name is Jake Samp. I'm joined with Connor Singheisen and Jason Vaith. We're going to be talking handling situations today. Week 2 of 3 planned. This could go 4 weeks maybe. There's so much that you could cover. As it pertains to handling situations, huge thank you again. Last week we had Major League Crew Chief Todd Titchener on, and he provided a lot of great feedback and information as far as how to handle situations, and walked us through a couple of situations that he had, and gave a lot of really good tools. So some of those we might bring back up again. Unfortunately, if you weren't able to join us last week, as we forewarned, we were unable to record it. But this one we're recording, and it'll be up on our YouTube channel at YouTube, and then just search Corn Belt Umpires Association. And if you hit subscribe, you'll get an email every time we upload a video. As always, please mute yourself. If you got to eat food, that's totally fine. Lunch, obviously. And if you got ideas, comments, questions, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, feel free to email Connor and myself. So we're going to be approaching this from the NFHS mechanics and rules. And we're going to try to help bring some tricks that we use at the college level to try to help at the high school level, while still recognizing that high school baseball is a completely different animal than college baseball. Umpires, we're the ones that are in control of the game. Better games occur when we're in control of our emotions. And one of the things that we're really going to talk about today is what some people refer to as red flags, or I think some other sports call them hot spots. And then we're going to talk about temperature. So first, we'll just talk about unsportsmanlike conduct. Typically, unsportsmanlike conduct is when we start getting into the realm of handling situations. And so, just some of these things, profanity, intimidation tactics, taunting, behavior not in a manner in accordance with the spirit of fair play. I think there's more. You go behind the catcher while the opposing pitcher and catcher are in their positions. Charge an umpire. There's a lot of them that they have. These are what we would refer to as standards of removal. And so any of these can either get you a warning or ejected, depending on the severity. But we're going to talk equally about how to warn, how to know when those situations are coming, and whatnot. And we have some videos this week. We're going to have a lot more videos next week. This is kind of a more foundational approach, but there will be some other stuff too that we talk about next week from a toolkit standpoint. Penalty is a warning. If it's major, then we get to eject. In high school, you have both a verbal warning and a written warning. You got to go through both the verbal and the written warning. And if you issue a written warning, the coach is restricted to the dugout for the remainder of the game. And what I would say with restricting a coach is use good judgment. Okay. If you have a coach that is restricted to the dugout and the pitcher takes a line drive and gets hit, they can leave the dugout. But to come out and make stuff,
checking on his batter or checking on his pitcher, nothing else.
Right. Yeah. So for a limited purpose, absolutely. But they're not coming out to make stops. That's the acting head coach's job. And then we have an ejection.
Jake, do we have to have a purple?
No, you can go right to the written.
Okay. And you said something about acting head coach. So we restrict the coach to the dugout, and it's not the head coach. The head coach can still come out, correct?
So you can restrict an assistant coach in NFHS, and then the head coach could still come out. But if they got to make subs or something like that, then the assistant coach would be able to come out and make the subs if the head coach was restricted. It's a weird rule. I remember when they put this in 5 or 6 years ago, and it created a bunch of confusion.
So basically, substitute the head coach.
Yeah.
For everything but so discussing and solved.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have to I guess I always understood it to mean just head coaches. I assumed an assistant coach, if I toss him, he's gone. But we have the option there.
Okay. You can toss an assistant coach. Like if I go back a couple slides here, F6, any member of the coaching staff who is not the head coach leaves the vicinity of the dugout or coach's box to dispute a judgment called by an umpire. That is a warning and an ejection. Okay. So one thing that I can do that I have in my toolkit is I have this option to restrict. And I've restricted assistant coaches before. Where it's just like, you're not to the point where I'm going to toss you yet. What you are doing is not worth me doing paperwork yet, but you're getting really close. So just go sit in the dugout for the rest of the game and don't come back out here, please. Is that okay? Cool. Any other questions on that? All right. So we'll talk about temperature, hot spots, stuff like that. So in the context of baseball, temperature is not what the temp is at first pitch. It's not a unit of measurement for hot or cold. It is a measurement to determine the level of intensity and emotion within the game. Temperature can rise from a variety of different situations. I've listed a couple here. Score differential, absolutely. I mean, if you're, if it's a game that's headed towards the mercy rule and you're still, butting guys over and whatnot, I mean, that can really frustrate a lot of people, and that can certainly increase the temperature of a game. Home runs with bat flip absolutely could collision, or even just a hit by pitch can certainly increase the temperature of a game. So knowing one of the keys to understanding temperature is knowing when we could have a red flag moment or a hot spot moment, and being able to diffuse that situation, or at least just try to. I can remember some of the podcasts that I've listened to where there's major league umpires that are sitting there and they're talking, and somebody's the plate umpires try to get stuff back under control, and the manager goes, "Well, you're not," and they know they're in for a really long night. Hopefully we're not getting to that situation at the games that we're working here, but stuff happens. I mean, I've had throwing at situations in amateur games. And you just got to deal with them. So trying to lower the temp, you got to understand there is only so much that you can do. Temperature, I mean, you can have an intense game from the first pitch. It's, playoff games. The temperature automatically increases just because it's a playoff game. Rivalry games could easily be a situation where the temperature would increase as well. And a couple things to try to lower the temperature: communicate with the coaches. If there's if there's a conduct issue, working through the coaches is a great effective way to try to lower the temperature of the game. If you were at our January 20th clinic in Sioux Center, we talked about the use of the lineup card. Being able to have access to a tool, pulling your lineup card out and say, "Hey, coach, I got a question here for you. Can you come here and it looks like you're just handling the a lineup change or something like that, when in reality you're discussing a potential conduct issue." And I've used that before, and I found that to be a very effective tool. I know Connor was talking about how sometimes he'll just pull out his lineup card and just like tap it on his chest protector a couple times, where it's like like if I got to open this, like I'm gonna start handing warnings out. So that's a very good tool to have in your toolkit as well. Use of warnings is fantastic as well. I mean, when we can, we should try to get a warning in, but recognize that there are some things that are just an immediate ejection. Warn when possible, eject when necessary. And then just having a good presence. And the next slide, we have a video here, and it's going to be a hit by pitch video. And what you're going to see, yeah, go ahead, Connor.
So the other thing I'd say is use players. The beautiful thing about baseball is we're typically somewhere in the vicinity of players, and they will help you out if you're nice to them and you establish a relationship and a rapport with them early on. Your catcher, your pitcher is all over the place, walks a couple guys, gives them a couple hits. He's getting frustrated because he feels like separation pitches are being balled. He feels like last time he pitched, the dude was calling chalk to chalk, knees to toes, or head to toes, and you're a little more refined. Those are all things that are going to increase the temperature. If you can talk to the catcher and say, "Hey, do me a favor, go get his head right." I may be missing a couple, but I'm not that bad. He can't be shaking us, doing whatever. Or if your center fielder is throwing his hands up and reacting like the guy from Tennessee did a couple of years ago on pitches, turn around and tell his shortstop, "Hey, do you guys need him today? Is he one of your better players? Yeah. Do you want him to stay in the game today? Yeah, it'd be nice. Okay, well, then help me out with him and get him to change his behavior. He's got to stop doing X, Y, Z." And a lot of times, they will understand that and take care of that for you if you go about it the right way. And they can help you with coaches. They can help you with players. They can help you with people on the bench. Just use them and treat them as people capable of handling that. And 99 times out of 100, they will. They'll help you out. They want you to be good. And if, it's something where I've been like, "Hey, if he's going to keep screaming at me, I'm going to get really bad because I'm going to be concentrating on him instead of what I'm trying to do here." And usually they're like, "Okay, I got it." Right. He thinks I'm bad now. Just wait till he keeps screaming at me and I gotta get flustered. And usually that they clue in on that, and they're smart enough to figure out that they can do something about that to help their team out.
So we're talking about, having a presence as well. And most of the time a presence is, it can be verbal, but it's usually a physical presence. Like, I'll put this in a hockey context. You're a lot less likely to punch a guy in the face in a hockey game if the referee is standing right next to you. And so being able to have a presence can diffuse situations. So this is a hit by pitch. And what you're going to see here is the pitcher or the batter immediately draws his attention to the pitcher. That's a red flag right there immediately. And so what we try to do is, you can see right here. So my partner here immediately recognizes he's not just taking his stuff off and going to first base. He's trying to say something. I have no idea what was said. Frankly, it doesn't matter what was said. So immediately my partner is breaking out to get between the hitter right here. His focus, he's still focused here, even though he's looking this way. He's still saying something, and I'm coming in here, and I can see his lips moving. So if we can create a wall of sorts here, that is a way to try and avoid stuff escalating.
Jake, I was just gonna say, I think that's a good best practice. I mean, we don't have to bust out of there hot every time. Your partner's reading temperature there, and he realizes he's got to get out in front of that. But I think a good best practice for all of us is when there is a hit by pitch to just come out in front of the plate, and take a few steps down the line just to make sure, because we said we're establishing that presence. So if the guy's thinking about turning around saying something to the pitcher, if we're right there, he's a lot less likely to do that, and it's just the day is gonna just go a lot smoother from there on out after that.
Absolutely.
So Jason, how do you prevent him from saying something or encourage him to get out of the situation to prevent something from happening as you're going with him up the line or as you come out from behind the plate?
My go-to, Connor, is actually really simple. I just come out, and if he starts saying something, I say, "Hey, let's just go to first base. Let's stay in the game today. Let's work. Let's just keep going to first base." And that tends to, kind of just usher him up the line there verbally, kind of like, "Hey, all right, this guy's here. He knows what it's going. He's telling me to go to first base. I'm going to go to first base." I've never had anybody stop and argue with me about that yet.
And I think one of the things that we have to recognize as umpires is that him turning and glaring is enough to flare temperatures. If you go back and slow play it, he kind of he doesn't really stand there, but he gets hit. He takes a couple steps and immediately his head's up. He's walking. He tosses his bat. The umpire does a good job of getting out there and saying, "Hey, here we go. Let's go. First base." Right? And we know, and we're going up with him and we're getting in between them. The catcher is not reacting like this is a hit by, like this is intentional. If the catcher is anticipating something, he's going to get out there and try to intervene in that situation, right? Especially at this level, they're taught to do that. The simple act of glaring, now maybe nothing comes of it now. But if we get out there and we head that off, we might prevent the next time he gets hit or the next time another player gets hit. They know we're in tune to the situation, what's going on, and we're going to be right there with them to prevent stupid stuff from happening, whether it's intentional or not. Because those things flare up in an instant because of the nature of baseball and the tough guy persona that a lot of players put on. So if we're just there, a lot of times I don't even say anything. I just take a couple steps out, run down the line with them. They're going to follow you because they see you coming and they know you're there. And it might be just time, take a couple steps out, lob the ball to the pitcher, distract him so he doesn't say something back or initiate a conversation. But just try to distract one of the two. And a lot of times that prevents anything from happening.
And then the only other thing on this one, if you're working on the bases, make sure you're come in hard. I mean, and be in tune with what's going on in the field. I mean, I saw right away, boom, we got a hit by pitch. Okay, he's staring at the pitch. You're like, we got to get in here. And then one last tidbit here. I realize the video quality is not very good, but and I think I was wearing a hood that day because it was cold. But verbally, I mean, good partner crew communication is essential here. So, as soon as I got to about where we're at right now, where the frame is frozen, I looked at him. I said, "Hey, I got it. I got the infield," which is his cue. I can head back. As soon as I say, "Hey, I got it," he starts coming in, and he's going to swap baseballs out with the pitcher, and we're going to move on.
Yep. One thing, go ahead, finish your thought, Jake.
Say that again.
So this needs to be a handoff. So right about here, stop it, Jake. So when you get to the 45, the base umpire should be coming in, because you got to come in anyways, and curl and pick up the batter runner and watch him touch first base. and your focus should be on the batter runner. As you're coming in, your focus is on the pitcher because the plate umpire is with the batter, and then you just trade off. And as the base umpire, I'm going to pivot, watch him touch, maybe stay a little bit closer to the base. And as a plate umpire, I'm going to peel off, get to the pitcher once we do that switch, because then we have both people covered. We're getting a new baseball. By the time we're done here, tempers should have settled down a little bit because we're ready to play. We're ready for the next play. Everybody knows we're in tune with what's going on.
Any other questions on that?
No, I was just gonna go off what Connor said because he took the words right out of my mouth. Is I always make sure I do switch out a new baseball after hit by a pitch too. That's a good way to. I take a few steps up the line, peel off like Connor said, and then get a new baseball to the pitcher. That's a good way to get a gauge on both guys.
I also think it's just bad luck to leave a baseball in that hit a player. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You nailed that on the head.
Or umpire.
Yeah, that too. So yeah, Jason, that's a great point. Like it's a good way to gauge temperature, and whatnot.
Hey Jake.
Yeah, what's up?
Do you guys? This is a habit I got into. Do you take notes on that situation in between innings, just in case something escalates later?
Personally, I do. And if I'm working like a summer game, I just carry like an old lineup card in my back pocket. But yeah, I remember I try to write that stuff down, just to notate it, because hypothetically now, let's just say you're working an amateur game, because like I said before, we've had throwing at situations in amateur games before. So you have a throwing at situation, and you go to sit and write your ejection report now because you had to run a pitch or were intentionally throwing at a batter. If you can go and say, in the third inning with 1 out, home player was thrown at or whatever, or home player was hit by a pitch, glared at the pitcher, and on-field umpires attempted to de-escalate. In the 6th inning, the pitcher came up to bat and was thrown at around his head and was in our judgment intentional, and the pitcher was ejected. To be able to go back and provide that context definitely helps the powers that be if they're going to decide, hey, yeah, we're going to issue a suspension here, or stuff like that. But yeah, that's a great point that you made, to make sure you write that down. It's definitely helpful. Connor, anything else?
No, I think that's a good point. I typically don't unless I feel like it's something where it doesn't go away immediately. Like we're just frustrated, and okay, yeah, I might make a mental note of it. But if it's something where we're jawing back and forth and it's more than like this situation right here, I probably don't write down. I just make a mental note, hey, 14 got hit. Players are going to tell you how many times that guy's gotten hit today. They do it every time. All right, kid gets hit more than once. They're chirping at each other, kind of directing it at the pitcher via their teammates. But they kind of let you know. This situation looks like it kind of was like, okay, we're cut and dry. We wash our hands, right? 5-0 game. Shouldn't be anything to think of. I'm going to make a mental note. I can always come back to that at the end of the game if we have something escalate from here. But if it's we're talking, I'm probably going to use some of those phrases and write those down, because then I can support something later on if I need to. That's a good idea.
We're going to move forward, and we're going to talk about how we handle players. You got to remember, players are competitive. They look to us as resources. If we get into a heated situation, establish a presence and try to separate players as a crew. Communication with players or communication with coaches about player issues. That's a very effective tool. And then, warnings with players can be as simple as, this is your warning. If you continue, you will eject yourself. Then, you yell, you explain, you let the coach know, hey, this player has a warning. And they might come out and ask, hey, what happened? And that goes right into that last bullet point of communication with coaches about player issues and concerns. Anything I'm missing, Connor?
Don't be afraid to add a little levity to the situation. Make a joke. My favorite thing when two players are kind of jawing back and forth, it's like, I'm like, hey, we're having fun here today, right, guys? Baseball's fun? Yep. Okay, cool. That is a precursor to knock it off, which is a precursor to, all right, this is your warning. And then you have multiple instances and demeanors in which you handle it. And if you have to warn and the coach gets upset about a warning, or you have to proceed further than that, say, coach, I tried cracking the joke to make sure they understood that I'm paying attention to them. That didn't work. I turned around and told them to play nice, to be friends. That didn't work. So now I'm warning them. That didn't work. And then we lead to an ejection. So I tried 3 steps before I got to the ejection, and they didn't heed any of it, which means nobody's taking care of that, so I had to. I gave the opportunity with the warning to handle it, but didn't take care of itself. And a lot of times simply turn around, hey guys, we're all friends here today, right? Kind of gets the message across that we hear what's going on, we're paying attention, and lets them know they haven't been warned, but they know they're being watched. And then use teammates to help with that situation.
Anything else, John or Jason? Yeah, anything? All right, got another video here. What we're gonna have here is we're gonna have a fly ball to left center field. And there's a play at the plate. And right there, the runner says something to the pitcher that's playing behind the that's backing up the catcher. So, point, make the warning, or I should say, give the warning. One thing to consider here, and before I grab the coach here, one thing to consider is all of these games, and I don't care if you're doing a 14U game in Menno, there's a camera there. Always proceed under the assumption that you are being filmed. Okay. And when you can visually communicate that a warning has been issued, there is no question as to whether a warning was issued or not, because you show that there was a warning. And it's just that simple. He gets up, he says something, and there's the point. So now my coordinator calls me, goes, did you give me a warning? You take that picture right there and be like, yes, I did. And now there's visual evidence that a warning was issued. So play continues. That's something to remember. If we issue a warning, that doesn't kill play. So issue the warning, but don't stop umpiring. So we have a play in at third. Play is now done. We call time. Our crew chief extraordinaire is right here on the plate. And he comes down, he's like, what do you got? I say, I got a warning. This is what I said. So we grab the coach here, and I said, Doc, this is what we did. I issued a warning for unsportsmanlike conduct. This is what was said, and I said exactly what was said. And he said, okay, and just made sure we were all on the same page, and grabbed the notepad, notated it, and moved on. Connor, anything you got there to add, or
Yeah.
anybody else?
So I would say in 2-person, which is what the majority of our games are worked,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be very, very hard to warn in the immediate moment. If that makes sense.
Yep. Because you don't have a 6'6", string bean running down for the first base line.
So, right. So we're warning, we're walking away. It's okay if we just point at him and the batter or the runner here scores, says something, and walks down the runway. Like he's vacating. So we don't need to necessarily be in his lap. What we need to do is be in position. Like if we can get in position between them, cool. But we also have to be in tune to the catcher, the on deck batter, who's back here behind us. We've got 2 infielders near the catcher. We have the potential for an overthrow, so we need to stay in position to officiate our next play. And a lot of times we just point or hold up the stop sign. Sorry, my camera's off, so I was eating. But if we just hold up the stop sign right to him, we don't need to say anything in that moment. Or we can just say, hey, stop. Right? Or this is your warning, whatever you have to say, but show it. Continue to be in position to officiate your next play. Let everything stop. Like, let everything finish, and then time. Know the kid's number. 19, this is your warning. This is your unsportsmanlike conduct warning. Right? I may leave it at that. And depending on what coach every coach is going to react to that differently. Some coaches are going to be like, from the dugout, what'd he say? Ask him. He'll tell you. That's usually my response. They don't come out of the dugout. I'm not always going to bring them out because 99% of the time they know a warning's been issued when I'm out there because I'm nice and quiet and I whisper everything, right? But I make it known. And 99% out of 100, they're like, got it. But hold it, especially at the high school level, hold the kids accountable. Ask him what he said. And if he doesn't tell you, then come to me. But I'm giving you the chance for him to be honest. And regardless of what happens, you're going to run into coaches at every level that will want to justify the kid's behavior. We had a conversation with this last week. I think we talked briefly about it yesterday, Jake.
Yeah, we talked about it at lunch yesterday.
But when a coach tries to justify language or behavior, put it back on the coach. How would you handle it if he talked to you like that? Or is that the behavior you want to represent your school? And a lot of times they're like, oh, that's not defendable. I tell coaches all, I'm like, we're not going to defend this. You can't defend that language or that comment as directed at his teammate or as whatever. And I stopped that immediately in their tracks when they started saying, well, no, there's no well, coach. This isn't a discussion. This is me giving you information. And I've given you that information, and he's been warned, and we're playing baseball. And then walk away. Don't let them argue. Don't let them justify it. Don't let them defend it. Just cut them off. Say, that's not acceptable today. And walk away. Because they think they can do it because they try. And then you get into a long-winded conversation about philosophy and who they're talking to and what they're saying and what the intention behind their words are. Coach, in my judgment, that's unsportsmanlike. I'm giving you information. We're not discussing it. I'm telling you what happened. You've gotten your answer. We're moving on and leave. Because then you get into a convoluted conversation and they try to twist your words or your mind and try to get you to think something different or deal with something differently. So just cut that off immediately.
There's a great old adage: silence can't be quoted. Say as little as you have to, and if they want to just sit and yell at you, issue a warning. Don't say anything else because silence cannot be quoted. When you're handling coaches, I always give head coaches a little more wiggle room. The rule book says they do. And if we go back to, let's say it was like the third or fourth slide today, it said a coach that's not the head coach that leaves their position to argue. So a head coach gets a little more leeway with communicating with umpires. Generally speaking, the head coach is a coach that is physically present at the plate meeting. Again, work with coaches to resolve player conduct issues. Connor, talked about having coaches hold players accountable. And then 2 ears, one mouth. It's something my parents used to say to me all the time. I wonder why. And but I've had situations before where coaches want to talk about something completely different. And that's not good when you are already starting to try to defend yourself. As far as, what it is that you did, what you called, all that stuff.
Jake, there's a,
yeah,
let's say, just to add on to that at the end, as a lot of us work amateur ball, and a lot of those head coaches are players and are actively playing. It's always I found it to be a best practice to make them designate a bench personnel to be the acting head coach. And that way we go through them during amateur games. So there's just a little thing that helps speed things up. We have one prominent manager in the South Central League who plays in center field, and every time they want to question something, I don't want to wait for him to run in from center field to talk to us and then go back out. It's a lot easier to just have a guy come off the dugout and do it.
I wouldn't want to run into
that. Might be.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't want to run and talk to you either, Jason. But I think that is required across amateur baseball. I know they're required at the state tournament, and regions or districts or whatever they're called. But I think it is technically required that they designate somebody that they're playing to be the acting manager.
It's good. Just make sure we're doing it, because I know there are some that don't, and then it's a disaster. So just a good reminder for all of us to make sure we're asking them, all right, who's your acting manager today?
For sure.
A good point to add. Okay. Talk about some do's and don'ts of situation handling. As Connor so perfectly alluded to on that last video, stay aware. Or actually, I guess that's when the ball's not in play, but still finish out the play. Have awareness when the ball's not in play. We got a couple videos scheduled for next week where we have stuff that happens between innings. And so being able to have the awareness of what's going on to know when to go get ears on something. Allow your partner to discuss play with the coach. That is self-explanatory. If you are the more experienced guy on the crew, it's okay to let your partner talk. You might get ears on it a little sooner. This was something that Todd talked about last week. If it's Connor and I working an amateur game together, it's, Connor's gonna let me handle my stuff. If it starts getting long, then he'll come get ears on it. But for the most part, he's gonna let me do my thing. Follow the proper warning procedures. Self-explanatory. Again, a lot of these are self-explanatory. Know your standards for removal. What is ejectable actually? Always remember that you are being recorded every game. I mean, cell phones are everywhere. It's just a good policy to have. Whenever you're officiating, you're being recorded. Just plan on it. Know your signals. With that, if you have a situation where there's contact, know how to signal contact. or, you know, how are you signaling a warning? So know your signals so you can effectively communicate, and don't allow a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1 conversation. It should be your partner, and if it's your partner that's talking, it should be your partner and the coach, or it should be you and the head coach. Like, that's it. Don't use profanity. Don't physically initiate contact with a player or a coach. And I also threw this in here. Don't walk onto the field without discussing how situations will be handled. It doesn't, like, this is not me telling you to discuss fight protocol before an amateur game. But, you know, hey, if we get a coach that comes out and wants to sit and argue something, you know, give me about 15 seconds with them. And if it starts getting long-winded, you know, whatever. But at least that way there's a plan. Connor, you got any more do's and don'ts? I mean, or John or Jason. I mean, there's a ton of these that I think we can probably come up with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is bullet point 4 on don't walk out on the field without discussing how situations will be handled. We talk a lot about situation handling, probably more than we do anything else, with umpires that you've worked with before or at the same level you're at, and you're comfortable with their ability. I don't need to sit here and have a pregame with John Thayer about two-person. It should be enough that he's going to get me through. Like, we'll talk a few basics. But we're going to talk, okay, we know these two teams, we know this coach, we know how they behave. What are we going to do when this happens? What are we going to do when that happens? How are we going to leave the field? And that's another one that I don't think we've ever mentioned on here, but what dugout are we going out if we have an option? You know, if we have a heated confrontation with the coach or an ejection of one coach, we don't want to walk through their dugout to get off the field. Typically, I try to go through the winning team's dugout because they're typically not going to say anything to us other than good game because they won, right? They can't blame us if they win. They blame us for winning, then they'll probably want us back. But if I ejected the winning coach or a player from the winning team, or we had a shit show of a play, we had a foobar of a play that it took a lot of thinking to get through, and it was tough to handle, or we had a situation, we're not going to go through that dugout. We're not going to go through the gate next. I don't care where my car's parked. I'm going to walk all the way around and get out there and get away from it. Because I don't want to put myself in a situation where something stupid happens. Number one. I think, this list is pretty extensive, and I think it covers a lot of the stuff that's on there. Don't interrupt coaches unless they start repeating themselves. If a coach is asking a question, let them ask the question before you answer that question. They may come out and you're talking about something entirely different that they don't even care about. And now they're mad because you did something that you brought something up that they'd already forgotten about, and you're adding fuel to the fire. So when they come out, hey, coach, what do you got? And typically not what's your question, because that comes off as argumentative and attacking. What's up, Jeff? Well, I think, okay. What did you see on that play? Or, and typically it's hey, this is what I had. I know you don't like it, but I got in the best position I can. I'm working hard, and this is what happened. This is what I had happen. Well, you missed that. If I was sitting in your dugout, I might feel the same way. But unfortunately, I'm out on the field, and I can't officiate based on emotion. And a lot of times that solves that problem. Or, hey, if that's how it happened, that's how you saw it, then you're probably right. But that's not what I saw. And I think finding those phrases that can diffuse situations and using them extensively are going to help you out. But I think the biggest thing is listen to what they have to say, they'll eventually talk themselves out. And if they start interrupting you, which happens regularly, I mean, I cut them off at that point. I know I say don't interrupt, but if I'm talking and they start to jump in, I'm like, hey, let me finish. Let me finish my thought, and then you can go. I don't interrupt you. Don't interrupt me, please. And what you're doing is you're setting expectation communications. And it's a lot like parenting. It's a lot like doing a lot of different things. And when you're having intense discussions. And I think the other thing that we also don't have on here is when you're having a discussion with a coach, try not to stand face to face. Try to stand more open to the field or open to something. Because when they start spinning in circles and turning with you, hey, coach, I'm trying to have a conversation. It looks like you're trying to have an argument because you keep squaring up in my face. Can we just have a conversation and talk? And a lot of times that clues them in. They don't know they're exhibiting that behavior. But also now you've shown the audience, all 7 people watching the live stream, that coach is being aggressive. You're trying to be conversational, and they're trying to be confrontational. And all of that's body language stuff. Don't stand with your arms crossed. Put your hands in front of your body, put them behind your back, put them dangling loosely at your side. I hook my mask on my belt and stand holding my mask with my left hand, and my right hand's just down at my side. And I try to keep any hand gesturing I do below my belly button, if I can. Because if you ever take stock in a conversation you have where you're upset, if you're somebody that talks with your hands, the angrier you get, the closer your hands get to your face, height-wise, right? You start down here, and then you build, and you build, and you build, and you build, and your hands are out here. If you keep below your belly button, it's very conversational, and you're like, okay, well, I get what you're saying, right? And your language and your body language plays a huge part in diffusing these situations.
I think
I
I'd
like
add
that.
a couple of things, Connor. Connor said, let the coach talk. You'd be surprised how many times where if you just let them vent, they just turn and walk away because they just want to say their piece and move on. And honestly, most of the time, I'm good with that. The other thing is if a coach is getting heated, and you're standing there, I always try to think into my head, breathe. The more that I can control my breathing, the less that I'm going to have a response that comes off as argumentative, hostile, or whatever. So those are 2 things that I've kind of learned as I've gone through this.
Let's say I really liked the phrase that we heard here recently, the don't go out of body, stay in control. Like Connor said, and John just alluded to that too with the breathing. Just don't get yourself worked up. Just stay there, stay calm, stay cool and collected. Because as Jake alluded to and Connor too, I mean earlier, we're umpiring for the camera in that situation. If we can stay calm and cool and collected, then everybody can see that the coach is the one getting worked up. He's the aggressor, and that's a lot easier to defend ourselves against any negative blowback we may get for dumping that coach if he so chooses. That's what we have to do.
Good stuff. Anything else on that? Otherwise, we can certainly go to the next one. Any questions on what we've had brought up here? Hearing none. Cool. I think we have one more video here. See if we can just get this to play normally here. So this is a college only, an intentional hit by pitch. And that was strike 3. Coach comes down. No, we know the coach is coming. Casually take the mask off. Don't rip the mask off. And, coach wants to be demonstrative. And all I'm sitting here and I'm telling him is, in my judgment, he intentionally permitted the ball to touch him. Like, the batter hit the ball did not hit the batter. And part of it was he wanted to bet. And as soon as he said his piece, partner came in and peeled him off. So let coaches talk first. Anything you got there, Connor?
Yeah. So can you go to where he starts to come down?
Sure. How's that?
No, a little further.
A little further.
You're like halfway down the line. As you start walking to him, and I go a little further. I'll take him to stop. Stop here. That's probably how far I'm going to be away from that coach when I'm talking to him in this situation. Because I don't want it to be a secret. I'm going to stand there and go, you know why he's coming down, right? In this scenario. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they come down and they go, what the is my kid doing, Connor? Like, why would he do that? What does he think is going to happen in the play? He just took us out. Now we have 2 outs in the bottom of the 6th, and we're down 1. He's the fastest kid I have. If he just lets himself get hit by the pitcher, lets that be ball 4. He's on first. He steals second easy. We hit and run. We tie it up. And they may just be venting. But I'm probably going to judge. I'm going to stop short, like well short, because I don't want it to be a hush-hush conversation. And I also don't want to be that close to him, because if he's upset, now everybody else knows what's going on. Everybody can hear him. I know it's 60 feet from home plate to the backstop at Cadwell, but they're going to hear him, right? And if I sense that he's upset at his player and not me, I might go a little closer. But I'm probably just going to stand there and just talk to him from 5-6 feet away as much as I can. Because the closer he gets, the more upset he gets, the more likely something stupid is going to happen. If he's far enough away, everybody sees what happens. And if he decides to come into the dirt circle, which I don't let happen, you got to stay on the grass, homie. I usually don't say homie to coaches. I say that to players a lot. I use a lot of slang terminology to players because sometimes it provides a little levity to it, and it's also less confrontational. I'm like, hey, dude, I get what you're saying, but we ain't gonna fly today. But I think if you stop, maybe take another step or two, and just let them talk. I typically greet them somehow. What's up, Charlie? What you got for me? But if they come down and they're talking as they're coming down, I might just nod my head and go, yeah, I hear you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe it either. That's one of my favorite lines. I cannot believe that. I can't either, coach. What? I can't believe he intentionally got hit by the pitch either. Who sticks their elbow into a 95-mile-an-hour fastball? And sometimes that's enough to get them to go like, okay. All right. They get it without having a argument about it. But again, it's all you have to try things and you have to mess up conversations. You have to mess up situation handling in order to learn how to do it better. Your partner should always be in a position to hear. Because post-game, I may say, hey, Jake, how do you think I handled that situation? What could I have done better in that situation? And Jake should offer a suggestion. That's what he's there for, right? He's got to be honest with me. I'm not very verbose. And part of that's intentional, part of it's not. But like Vaith can tell you, we had a situation in a Class A state amateur tournament last year where I had a forced play side roll at second base. And this coach comes out hot and he's just yelling about something. How can I call that? And I go, how can I not? What? How can I not call that when it's that bad? I don't even think that's a rule. He slid directly into the base. I go, what side? And I just ask questions. What side of second base did the fielder come off of? Huh? What side of second base did the fielder come off of? How did he turn that double play? Well, he came off the right field side. Okay. So we're saying that the right fielder, or that the second base and shortstop, whatever, worked on the outside of the base. Outside the base path. Yeah. And there was contact. Yeah. So how can he have slid legally if there's contact that occurred after the shortstop touched the base and we agreed that he's on the outside of the base? How can that be a legal slide? And you walk them through the rule by asking questions and making them pigeonhole themselves into a corner. Said manager decided to squat down and try to draw second base. And I just looked at him with my mask on my hip. I'm just like, Art, if you're going to continue to draw pictures in the dirt, I'm just going to eject you. And said it pretty much exactly like that. And Jason can allude to that if he wants to. But I just was like, dude, that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to run you. We're going to go home. And everything was very calm, cool, and collected on my end as he was just making a fool of himself. And sometimes you just got to let them make a fool of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all remember the Montgomery A's, I think it was Montgomery A's. No, Rome A's? Rome Braves? Montgomery Braves, I think. Yeah, I know it was Braves. It was Montgomery Braves. Philip Wellman gets ejected and decides to army crawl behind the mound, launch the rosin bag towards home plate, and the plate umpire is just standing there letting it happen. Probably trying not to laugh at some of this, but probably also really pissed off that this is happening. So sometimes you just gotta let them make a fool of themselves. And be like, all right, cool, are you done? All right, now you are. Are you done talking? Yeah. Okay, how do you want to proceed? What do you mean? Well, you repeated yourself, you've gone through a warning, you argued, you yelled, you screamed, you cussed. What do you want me to do now? What do you mean? I go, well, what would you do if that happened in the classroom? What would you do if that happened in your office and somebody did that to you? Okay. Well, you're not gonna volunteer that information. All right, I will. And run them. But sometimes you just have to be calm, cool, and just make them let them make themselves look like fools. Because that goes so much further in how the people perceive the situation that are not in that situation, that you just are like, all right, cool, whatever. You do you. I'm gonna handle your behavior now because you led me no choice. You let us here. So
Any questions or anything before we wrap up here?
Just going back to the video there, especially if it's supposed to be me at 45. Are you throwing up the stop sign with the hand saying, "Hey, I'll meet you. I'll meet you."
Okay.
We talked about.
So
on
hang on, let me put some context to this video. This video, Jake,
not
is
this
from.
one. He means the one you're talking about, the hit by pitch, Jake.
Yeah. That's
So
I'm talking about.
That was
So
2019 before the 45 was implemented.
Yeah.
Here's the thing we have to realize. That coach can come down to the edge of the dirt circle to talk to the plate umpire. He doesn't have to stop at the 45 by rule. He has the option to come to the edge of the dirt circle or the 45. If he's talking to the base guy, 45. Talking
45.
to the plate guy, dirt circle.
But do not let him in the dirt circle.
Yeah.
That's where the stop sign comes up. Nope. That's far enough.
Stay on the grass. Hey, keep your shoes clean, even if you're on turf.
That's a good one. Keep your shoes clean. I like that one.
Do you really want to clean your shoes? No? Okay, then stay off the dirt.
That was a really good one. Keep your shoes clean. I like that. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll shut the recording off.